Gents, switching gears and focus on Leeds against Liverpool in a massive game in the Premier League. Let's look bigger picture here. Andy, which team needs a bigger rebuild this summer? And this is all an asterisk next to it. Obviously, Leeds, if they go down, which is still a distinct possibility, they'll need a massive rebuild. But, they've been sucked back into this relegation battle, haven't they? 2 points from safety now of 8 games to go, battered at home by Crystal Palace last time out. And you've got Liverpool, on the other hand, who are way off the pace in the top 4 race, but just 3 points off, top 6 European places. So bigger picture, who do you think needs the bigger rebuild out of these two clubs? Because they're really at a bit of a crossroads, right? They've done so much great work over the last few seasons. Now is kind of crunch time for them to see how the next few seasons are going to go for these respective teams.
Yeah, I think it has to be Liverpool just because of the tier that they're operating in and competing in when we're talking about not just being in the Champions League, but a team that has won the Champions League in the last 5 years. And so the expectation is such that a small dip, and I guess I would call this a medium dip that they've had this season. The fact that they're almost certainly not going to be in the top 4, and they might not get into those European places either. It's a disappointing season for Liverpool, but I think when you look at things cyclically and how things go, you can only burn so bright and so hot for so long before it is time to refuel that machine. And I think that's where Liverpool find themselves at, and the money it's going to take to do that. The fact that they have had to pull out of the Jude Bellingham race, I think is bitterly disappointing for them, because if you just look at this team and the player that he is, that is the perfect fit. And obviously he's not going there without Champions League. And so I think that makes it much more difficult as well for Liverpool, what they're going to have to do this summer. We don't know exactly the financial situation of the club. And Leeds, on the other hand, Leeds might be the 10th best team in the Premier League this season. They might be the 18th best team in the Premier League this season. Like there is so little to separate all of those teams that I almost feel like if Leeds just make 1 or 2 smart signings, that they look massively improved next year. Also, maybe have the right manager in the job as well, somebody that you're going to stick with for the long term. I think you can make small changes for big improvements with Leeds, whereas Liverpool, I think, are going to need massive changes for small improvements, if that makes sense.
It does, but I feel like it's almost less players, right, at Liverpool. They probably need 3 or 4 players in key areas, be it, centre-back, centre midfield, maybe in the full-back areas, and move Trent into midfield. That's obviously been talked about a lot. So I almost feel like Leeds. I feel like Leeds have lost themselves a little bit. It was Marcelo Bielsa's project. It was great. Got them in the Premier League. Were great in the first season. And then obviously just kind of panicked and lost their way in that second season, and Jesse Marsch just about kept them up. And I don't know if he was ever really the right answer. And, there was some big wins. There was some great recruitment of players that they might not have been able to get otherwise. But this is still Leeds United. This is still one of the biggest teams in England. And I feel like they've just lost their sense and lost their way. And at the moment, I'd be quite worried about Leeds. And if I was a Leeds fan right now, no one's really talking about them when it comes to relegation. They're just a couple of points above the drop zone. But everyone's thinking, they'll have enough. They've got enough goals in that team. But the way they capitulated in the second half against Crystal Palace, that's concerning for me, because Patrick Bamford was saying, it's a freak result. It was fine. We were on top. And they were really good in the first half. But they had this really nasty knack as a team of not putting teams away when they're on top and then collapsing and having a 45 minutes like they did against Palace, where you do that enough throughout a season, it's going to cost you. So I'm kind of with Leeds on the big rebuild. I think there's still a lot of players there from the Bielsa era that don't really fit anymore. And they're going to need some kind of new direction this summer if they do stay in the Premier League. And obviously, if they go down, they'll need an even bigger shift in players coming in and out, because, that's just going to be such a blow to them, given how long that it took them to get back into the top flight. But Nick, where do you come in on this conversation when Leeds and Liverpool and their respective projects? Because there's going to be rebuilds of some sort for both teams this summer, no matter what happens for them.
Yeah, listen, first of all, if they could get a bionic Thiago, that would make a big difference. I mean, the guy, unfortunately, has missed between 10 and 12 games a season. But if you really want to look at what changed in that Liverpool-Arsenal game, they put in an absolutely astounding game-running midfielder, and Arsenal almost didn't know what to do. Liverpool has fixing its midfield should absolutely be the priority. And honestly, if they were to run it back with the other guys they have at forward, and even for the most part on the back line, maybe spelling Van Dijk a little bit more, because I don't think he has that whole 50 games a year in him anymore. Look at right now, what have they done to their midfield? Klopp has failed at developing Naby Keita, who looked like he was going to be. And I don't want to put that on Klopp. It's obviously the player as well, right? Yeah. But we all thought he was the piece they were missing. They ended up winning without him, which is hilarious, more or less. But they let Wijnaldum walk. They brought in Thiago, who was a brilliant signing. And the rest, they've just kind of counted on Klopp to develop kids. And, I mean, every time you feel like they trot out Harvey Elliott or Curtis Jones or Badge, and these are good players. They're good prospects, though. Not so much good, firmly developed prospects or projects, I should say. They have to start acting like they're Liverpool. And I mean that probably goes a little bit above Klopp. They need, like, Jude Bellingham's going to cost $100 million to somebody. If you want to be Liverpool and that's who you are, it's probably got to cost $100 million to you. Because every other player we're talking about, whether it be Tchouaméni or other midfielders they've been linked with, they're costing $70-80 million. And if Jude Bellingham is 21, is he 21 now or is he still 20?
He's still 19. He's still 19.
Yeah. So he's still that age. That's going to be his cost. And if you want that player, you got to pay for that player or develop him. And right now, they have not shown that they can develop a world-class midfielder.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other players they're linked with, Moises Caicedo from Brighton, Declan Rice. Yeah, I mean, maybe they're a bit more attainable financially. It looks like with City and Real Madrid being in for Bellingham, they're talking about $150, $160 million plus for him now, which is totally out of Liverpool's reach. If
that's true,
even before they're not going to qualify for the Champions League, which is obviously looks like it's very highly likely. And then after that, you factor that in, and it's just crazy. I mean, Andy, if you're looking at this game in particular, what do we expect from Liverpool? And if for Leeds playing the way you did in the second half against Palace, giving up big chances on the counter, kind of the last team you want to play against, right? Liverpool are pretty good over the years of, even now in their up and down season, they're pretty good at demolishing teams when they get chances on the counter attack. So do we expect a pretty comfortable victory here for Liverpool and the matchup just doesn't work well for Leeds? Because let's not forget, Leeds did win at Anfield earlier this season with Jesse Marsch running down the sidelines to celebrate. So they've matched up decently against Liverpool since they returned to the Premier League.
Man, that seems like a long time ago that was, doesn't it? Do Liverpool fancy it in this one? I guess that's really my only question, because they clearly fancied it against Arsenal, and they turned in one of their best, certainly 45-minute performances of the entire season in the second half. And I know they did it at home, and you just have the extra motivation of playing a part in the title race and upsetting things a little bit. But they showed that they can still operate and play and dominate at that level. And it just, I'm sure as a Liverpool fan, you must look at that and say, so we could have been doing this all season? We could have played that way with these players that we have all season? Why have we not been doing that? And so there is an element of what is the mentality of that team? And I think Nick has made the point a number of times that the mentality monsters have become a little bit mentally weak probably this season, and very just up and down, inconsistent, in their motivations and their focus, I think. And so if they turn up for this one on Monday and they say, all right, we're going to do exactly what we did against Arsenal in the second half. We are going to overwhelm them. We are going to, and being out of European competition now is obviously a massive help for them. They can focus on just the one game every single week. That bodes poorly for Leeds in this one. So all signs point towards Liverpool, with the asterisk that they could just decide to not show up for this game. And obviously that then favors Leeds. Like, it is solely on Liverpool's shoulders whether they win this game or not. It feels like that because they still have that talent and that potential and that extra gear that they can go to, especially against a team like Leeds. I'd like to see them put up a big number in this game. I really would, to show that we're not waiting until the summer to start the project, to start the rebuild, to start the momentum back, because I think above all, that's what they have lost. They have lost all positive momentum that the club has had in recent years. And I think at times you could argue no club in the Premier League had more of it than Liverpool did.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's a great point about momentum and almost looking ahead to next season, being like, okay, we had a bad season, but we're still potentially going to finish 6th or in the top 6. And that's not too bad when all things said and done, and we had a bit of a dip in form. Fatigue seems to set in massively for this Liverpool team this season. And as I mentioned before, I think they need 3 or 4 quality arrivals in the summer. Probably not at the level they were hoping to get when we talk about Jude Bellingham, etc. But they're still not as far away from being back in the top 4 as I think most people are saying right now. So still a very good team there. Nick Mendola, what's your prediction for this one? Because again, Leeds, like Liverpool, a weird team. They can pull out a big win, especially at home, out of nothing with their fans behind them. And as I said, they're going to have to wait all weekend to see their relegation rivals play. It could potentially, right, if I'm working it out, the math here, I think they could potentially drop into the bottom 3. It's a bit outlandish, but it'll be really much tighter by the time they kick off on Monday. And they got to get something going, right? They got to get some kind of consistency going under Javi Gracia, because they have looked better defensively, but I just don't know what I'm going to get from Leeds going forward. So what are you predicting, and what do you think about Leeds?
A 2-goal looking Liverpool win that ends up being like 3-2 or 4-3 or something like that, because they give up one late when they lose focus. It's too much Liverpool. Salah, I've been beating this drum all season. I think he's still been fantastic, and he's just getting very little help.
I'm going to go, I like that kind of angle. I'm going to go 3-2 to Liverpool as well. I think there's chaos in both these teams right now, and a bit of fun with Liverpool's play. Like, there's not too much to play for them. Let's just go out and express ourselves. And then for Leeds, I think that defensive deficiency has really returned to their game, and they're going to have to chase games a little bit now as well. So that's what I'm going for. Andy, what's your prediction?
A 2-goal looking, 2-goal win for Liverpool, 3-1.
All right, nice. All right, well, it's going to be a fun one by our score predictions if they come to fruition. So Leeds against Liverpool. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com for all the latest how to watch information, preview, team news, and analysis and reaction from that one. Always a fun one when these two teams square off. We saw Leeds have the big upset win at Anfield earlier this season. Let's see if they can do a double over Liverpool, or if Jurgen Klopp's boys will get a bit of revenge. It's going to be a fun one.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.